Man, Josh, if we thought last week's show was massive, this week not only do we have the NBA players from WrestleMania, but we have the NFL draft this week, which means we had to bring on Sean Fitzgerald to help us here in the first 30 minutes talking about draft.
Hey, glad to
Yeah,
be on, man. It's been a while, Josh. It's been a while.
it really has. I'll tell you this. Most of the recent seasons with the NFL draft, I've been really invested and interested. That's not the case this season. I don't know why, but for some reason, I don't have that same juice, that same
Mhm.
level of interest for this year's draft that I've
Yeah.
had in the past.
I can speak for
I can
myself
answer that
here.
for a very good reason because it goes hand in hand. Because I think everybody feels the same way. Number one, it's not a quarterback draft, and quarterbacks
Mhm.
are sexy, and that's what people talk about. But the
Hey, I
second
want
reason is
Carnell
this.
Tate. That's what I want. I want wide receiver.
Well, the second reason is this. It's a good receiver draft. I would say it's not a oh my god receiver draft.
Yeah.
The other thing is this. It's a big people draft. It's an offensive line and a defensive line draft. And for those of you like me who are 5'3", who for some reason like watching big people beat each other up, you're into this draft because trenches win football games. So this may not be the most sexiest draft of all time, but I do think there's going to be a lot of football players in this draft that's going to win a lot of teams' football games. Maybe not next year, but in the future.
Yeah.
Is this going to be like the draft from when the Kansas City Chiefs took Eric Fisher #1 overall?
No, it's not
No,
going to
not
be
like
that.
that one. That
I
one
would
was.
compare it more towards the Aiden Hutchinson, or the guy who went number one,
Or what about the
Jacksonville.
Myles Garrett draft to a degree? That one.
Yeah, but that one at least had Mahomes. It had Watson.
Mitch
It had Mitch
Trubisky.
Trubisky.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, let's get right to it. We're not going to do a full mock draft. If you want to check out the entire Voltage Live Teams mock draft, make sure you go to voltagelivemedia.org. Our mock draft did drop this morning, but we are going to take it by sort of a question team by team basis. And we got to start off with really where the draft starts this year, because we all know Fernando Mendoza's going #1 to the Las Vegas Raiders. The draft really starts here at #2. The consensus is the Jets are taking a defensive edge. It's just nobody can really until Thursday night about 8:15 Eastern qualify which one it's going to be.
Which I like this because normally I feel like when it comes to the Jets, we hear a lot of noise out of that building and people have a sense of who they're going to be taking. This year, you're not really getting all that noise. Nobody really knows who they're taking. I feel like this is a good culture change for the Jets.
It definitely is a refreshing take just to see, we don't know anything. And particularly, Brandon, I don't know if you remember when we were back at BSR in 2018. Hugh Jackson was the one who basically leaked out the Baker Mayfield stuff. I think they informed him, and then that's when it started coming out during that day of the draft or so.
I think it was
A
the
lot
night
of us thought
before,
Darnold
right?
was going to be the pick, and I was, really on the Darnold train, but I've never been against Baker. But this is one of those scenarios where it's like, man, this is kind of fun. Nobody knows.
So I do think there is a little bit of an inkling out of the Jets camp, which was about a week ago. They decided to cancel the visit of David Bailey. And some people have taken that two different ways. Some people said, oh, they have all the information. They're taking David Bailey. They don't need to bring him in. My takeaway is I think if you wanted the guy, I think you would have brought him into the building. And I do think the Jets already have their guy selected. And I agree with Christian Hidden, who had this pick for the Jets in our Voltage Live mock draft. I think it is going to be Arvell Reese, the defensive end out of Ohio State, who was really more of a Micah Parsons type. He can play linebacker. He can play defensive end. And listen, the Jets defense had a defensive head coach last year, and they were bad. They didn't have an interception all season long. To me, I know everybody likes David Bailey. They think he's the best pure pass rusher in the draft. but I think Arvell Reese has more upside. And I think Aaron Glenn's looking at this like, we're probably going to win 2 games, and I may not even be here next year anyway. Might as well take the guy with the best upside and see if he can help us out.
Yeah, and that's where I see it as a Buckeyes fan. Like, it definitely feels like that would be the way. I think there's probably going to be 4 guarantees in the first round. I think there might be a defensive tackle. What's it? Caden McDonald might maybe in the later half of the round. But there's something I wanted to bring up, Brandon. This is something that was in the Where Things Stand NFL series for part 4. One of the Jets players spoke out about just the culture. It was defensive tackle Harrison Phillips, and Phillips said the following, it was Glenn inheriting what he called, being Phillips, a very cancerous, truculent group, whole top to bottom. And when you know how to use the word truculent like that, you know how to use the word truculent. That is a very smart man. So I think, especially now that you've got a lot of, and I'm not saying it's Sauce Gardner or anyone, but it seems like they got a lot of problems out of the building from what we know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for them to go defensive, but I will say this. Not that I would justify going Ty Simpson number 2 overall, but if you just have Garrett Wilson, you don't have anything for defense.
They got Breece Hall still, right?
Breece Hall is still there. They just franchise tagged him.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's
No, I'm talking in terms of wide receivers. Besides Garrett Wilson, who else is there that really scares you?
Now,
Nobody.
obviously, Josh, I think your argument would make more sense next year if they had a quarterback, because there's a certain Ohio State guy at wide receiver who may be the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
He could honestly be, even depending on which team ends up there.
And that would be ironic if it was the Jets, because they were the last team to take a wide receiver number 1 overall in Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, geez, what year was that again?
I think 93. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was 93.
Granted, I do agree that I think the Jets will go Arvell Reese, but it's interesting you bring up David Bailey, and I'll get to where I think he should go when we get to another question within this NFL draft topic. But, if he goes to the Jets, it would make sense, but I think he fits better with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. Obviously, Tennessee could go running back with Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I am still with the belief that they are going to take a defensive player. I personally think that one of a Caleb Downs or a Sonny Styles, one of the Ohio State players, will probably end up with Tennessee. That would be my guess. I had Sonny Styles going there in my personal mock draft because of Robert Saleh, because of the Fred Warner connection in San Francisco, wanting that middle linebacker connection. But, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting to see where Arizona goes, because in our Voltage Live mock draft, we had Caleb Downs going there. It was just like, I thought he was the best player available at that spot for Arizona, and then he got Tennessee right after. Like, that's where it gets interesting. Yeah.
A lot of people think that Arizona is going defense. I actually think that they would go offensive line. And if I'm taking Mo Aluga, the right tackle / guard, out of Miami. Because my takeaway is you're going to be bad next year, right? You're going to be 4th in the NFC West. And I feel the same way about the Jets. They're going to be bad next year. They're going to be 4th place in the AFC East. The Jets already have their bookend tackles for the next decade. They took the kid out of Penn State a couple years ago, and then they took the kid out of Missouri, Metabu, last year. With Arizona, my takeaway is, why don't you get your offensive line anchored? Because next year you're going to be at the top of the draft. You're going to take a quarterback.
My main thing was this, is just how much longer is Budda Baker going to be an elite safety?
Well, my counter argument to that is what's a more important position, offensive line or safety?
Well, if you don't have a quarterback and you're not a tank for Manning, then that's probably... Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of reports recently that Arizona is actually trying to trade out of the number 3 overall pick But if they stay there, they might actually go with Jeremiah Love.
That I don't buy. I think it's a smoke screen because they're trying to get some
That's
people.
definitely that smells like smoke screen to me,
Now,
especially in smoke screen season. No one knows, but if there's a
speaking
smoke
of
screen, that
go ahead. Speaking of trading, one of the teams that has been on the list of teams that could possibly move up, and I'll be honest, I don't get why. As even a fan of a rival team in the NFCs, I actually think 12 and 20, where Dallas is at, they are in a perfect spot to grab two defensive players, whether it's a linebacker / safety and a corner, and that's what they need. Their offense is set. They don't need any more offensive pieces. You can make an argument they may need a running back later in the draft, but they really don't with how good their offense has been. They need to really solidify that defense. And I don't even know, unless it's for Sonny Styles, which again, I like, but I don't think a linebacker is necessarily a position you move up 5, 6, 7 spots for. I think this would be it'd be an interesting move from Jerry Jones, but it would be a move outside of the norm from the last decade.
Yeah. And especially with the Browns being the most connected team, because the popular framework, or one of them, has been, the Browns would end up in a potential trade scenario getting the 3 first-round picks, going to 12, 20, and then keep 24 or whatnot, but they'd give up their second-round pick, which is what doesn't make sense to me. I feel like if Dallas is trying to hike up the board, like, make them, pay up the Pied Piper if I were, a general manager. So I don't know what the exact fascination with Styles is. Obviously, he's a really, really good defensive football player, but we saw last year, as of right now, the Browns reap the benefits of James Gladstone just moving up for Travis Hunter, because right now he's going to be primarily on defense at least to start the 2026 season whenever he gets his campaign going. And that was, he may have overpaid, and we'll see, at least 1 year in, the returns look more favorable for Cleveland, but could end up flip-flopping down the road.
I mean, with Dallas, you also have to think about the fact that the Giants have 2 first-round picks. Washington is sitting there at number 7. Cleveland makes the most sense if you want to trade up, because then you're right in between the Giants and the Commanders, and you could possibly get the guy that Washington wanted, so then you don't have to face whoever it is twice a season.
I think if Tennessee takes Jeremiah Love at 4, it's actually more likely Dallas moves up, because I think if he's there at 7, Washington would take him. Yeah. I don't see the Giants taking him at 5, and I obviously don't see the Browns taking him at 6. So to me, if he's going at 4, Washington would take a defensive player. At that point, then, does Dallas, to your point, Josh, try to move in between the Giants and the Commanders? Because I think we all acknowledge Giants are probably going defense with at least the pick at 5. We'll see what they do at pick 10. There's rumors out there that they could go receiver at 10. I think Dallas, again, to me, you could try that if you're Dallas, but I think either way, the board is falling to you where you're going to get 2 pretty good defensive players anyway.
Right, but again, like, what if you want the same player that Washington wants? Or when the Giants are back on the clock, what if the player they want is still there? You could throw a monkey wrench in their plans.
I think I get where you're coming from, especially since I don't think the Chiefs are going to trade down if one of their preferred wide receivers is there, or their preferred one. I thought, but we'll find out, because again,
if I'm Dallas, they're almost guaranteed to get the first or second best corner, sitting at 12, which is what they need. Because I think Kansas City or Miami, I think one of them will take a corner. I don't think both of them will take a corner. So either they're going to get McCoy, who has the injury concerns coming out of Tennessee, he tore his ACL, or they can get Lamar, the kid out of LSU, who many people think is the best corner, and some mocks have him sitting there for Dallas to be taken at 12.
See, I had McCoy going number 5 overall to the Giants, because when you think about it, The Giants are in the NFC, and you look around the conference, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. You got Puka Nacua, and amongst other great wide receivers. So you need to bolster up that back end of your defense. And so the best way to do that is to go out and get a cornerback or a safety.
See,
And
my
like-
takeaway is Caleb Downs is the better player. If he's there at 5, which I suspect he will be, that's who the Giants are taking.
No, I understand what you're saying, but like McCoy was in the SEC where a lot of the premier wide receivers are. So,
But I doubt you're going to spend a top 5 pick on someone who literally did not play a snap of football last year because he's coming off an ACL injury.
I mean, that's true. Outside, what was it? Jamar Chase just sat out a season at LSU.
Yeah, and that was because of COVID, but he wasn't hurt.
Right, yeah. That's why I was just
So-
double checking, because I don't think he was hurt.
This sort of leads to our next question, which is, which team are you most interested in? This could be like a one-pick perspective, a team that you're watching. Maybe there's a guy that you think could be impactful. Josh, I know this is one of the questions that you posed. So did you want to start with this one?
yeah, so I actually have 2 teams I'm really interested in. Both of them only have 1 pick in the first round, and that would be the Tennessee Titans and the Carolina Panthers. With Tennessee, if Jeremiah Love is there, do you draft him and get more help for Cam Ward? Or do you go to the other side of the ball and go get David Bailey if he's still sitting there? Because you mentioned it earlier. Saleh comes from the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the defensive coordinator, and he had Fred Warner, who I viewed as kind of the captain of that 49ers defense. When you look at Texas Tech's defense from last season, David Bailey kind of took on that same role for the Red Raiders. So it feels like a natural connection for them to go with David Bailey. But again, if you want to help out your young quarterback, maybe you go and get the running back Jeremiah Love. So that's why I'm interested in Tennessee. And it's kind of the same thing with Carolina. We think Bryce Young has now turned a corner, but we're not 100% sure. He definitely took a step forward last season, so I'll give him his credit. But again, like they lost not McMillan. They lost Rico Dowdle. There we go. In free agency. But I don't think there's a second running back that you could justify using the 19th overall pick on.
Not in the first round. Jeremiah Love will probably be the only back that goes in on Thursday night.
It's unlikely we're going to see anyone else among that running back that drafted.
So again, with Carolina, it makes most sense to go with the defensive side of the ball. But again, maybe they decide we need to bolster our offensive line. So it's kind of the same reason with both Tennessee and Carolina for me. But for some reason, those 2 teams, even though they stick out, it's because of their young quarterbacks. Do they try and help them, or do they bolster their defensive side?
Fitz, I'll let you go.
Well, I would love to just do the whole Browns and Chiefs wide receiver thing. Here's what was interesting with the Chiefs is they acquired that extra first-round pick in the deal that sent out Trent McDuffie to the Rams, and the Rams still have a first-round pick for the first time in ages from a deal they had previously done with the Atlanta Falcons. I wonder if, depending on what anything happens with Matthew Stafford, I know he's coming back this year, but you have to look and invest in the future. Does it make sense if Sean McVay falls in love with Ty Simpson? Is that maybe a potential landing spot? It's just something that just came to mind within the last couple of days. I'm thinking.
Not
maybe.
at 13th overall.
Well,
they don't pick again for a little while because, again, they traded the other pick to Kansas City, their own original pick.
Well, one, if he falls in love with Ty Simpson, I think it's a mistake. I don't see Ty Simpson being a franchise quarterback. I'm going to throw that out there right now.
It's tough to say because compared to one of the quarterbacks from last year, I didn't get the same kind of like dread sense or, the gut punch, as I like to call it. But it doesn't mean it's a guarantee that he's going to be successful either. But you do have to, at least at some point in this draft, if you're McVay, you need to plan for life after Stafford.
Well, here's my takeaway, Fitz. If Micaiah Lennon is there at 13 from USC, they're running to the podium and submitting that pick because I think that they are actually planning for life after Puka Nacua.
Yeah,
I think that there is a scenario where this offseason they could trade Puka, they could get an additional first-round pick, and next year in a much better quarterback class, that's when you looking at your potential successor.
And he's also had a few off-field, things that have came up. And look, anyone will try to get a product like that as long as they don't turn into Antonio Brown right away. But to keep it more serious here, it's definitely something. I do think if there is a absolute floor in the first round for Simpson, it would be the Dolphins at 30. Otherwise, I think he'll slide to either Arizona or someone else who's willing to trade up into the mid-30s.
I don't think Arizona is going to take a shot. I don't think really any of these quarterback needy teams are going to take a shot.
That's what's weird is because it just feels like the exact same thing with Will Levis.
The one team that I think would be like Pittsburgh, obviously, though I don't think it's going to be in round one. I will say this, and I promise you this is not a cop-out because they are my favorite team. But I am interested to see what my Eagles do on Thursday night because there's a lot of scenarios that one Howie Roseman can go. And we know Howie is a very shrewd operator when it comes to the draft. We know that he obviously loves his SEC players in Alabama and Georgia. There is the Georgia linebacker, C.J. Allen. There's the Alabama offensive lineman, Proctor. There's obviously some thoughts that they could go wide receiver. Obviously, my argument has been if you are trading A.J. Brown to New England or somewhere else, if you take a wide receiver, you lose almost any leverage you have if you take one in the first round. So the guy I really want, and I can't say his name, so I'll just say it, the safety from Toledo.
Oh, that one.
I want to pair
Emmanuel McNeil Warren.
Yeah. I want to pair him with Quinyon Mitchell. I'd also be happy with taking Dylan Thyman from Oregon and having two white defensive backs and Cooper DeJean and Dylan Thyman.
I had
the Vikings taking McNeil Warren because Harrison Smith's not going to be a football player forever, and there is some a little bit up in their status with him over there.
By the way, Fitz, I had to correct you in your write-up because they've already designated him as a post-June 1st cut.
Oh, they did?
Yes. So he's not even going to be a Viking.
I had Daniil Simon going to the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you did as well. So, I mean, that's something that I would look at for Philly. Again, do they go with the Wayne Johnson replacement? Reed Blankenship is now a Texan. You got to fill that safety hole. Again, I think they can go wide receiver later in the draft. If they do by chance take one, it's obviously a signal that A.J. Brown is for sure being traded, but I wouldn't lose any of that leverage.
I should be.
There is one more team that is going to make me curious, though. What do the Buffalo Bills do?
My takeaway is, if I'm Buffalo, a lot of people say that they should go defense, obviously to boost up that defense. But if he is still there, which I don't know, again, Philly could take him. If Omar Cooper is sitting there, if I'm Buffalo, I just take him. Yeah. I think I know that they have DJ Moore now. I know Khalil Shakir is there, but Joe Brady is an offensive guy. And I was
still a little shocked that they got DJ Moore in a trade this offseason, but hey, that's at least a reliable target.
But most Super Bowl teams, even Seattle, Philadelphia the year before that, Kansas City, they have multiple receiving targets now. Most teams have a 1A and a 1B that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I think Buffalo, I know they have Shakir, and I know they got the two tight ends in Kincaid and Knox. To me, you just go all in on offense. You almost do what the Bengals do, where you just double down. F it. Our defense isn't very good. Let's just try to outscore you.
Mm-hmm.
I should be more interested in what my hometown team, the Cleveland Browns, are going to do, but I'm really not. Like the Browns are one of the teams that have 2 first-round picks. They're owned at number 6, and of course at number 24, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Because of the Jacksonville Jaguars trade. But for some reason, the Browns don't really interest me that much. Could I see them possibly going Cardinal Tate at number 6? Yeah.
That's something I really like, because I think if you do go with a quarterback in next year's draft, if you're the Browns and you take Tate, I think you already have, an able-bodied target.
I agree.
And I have concerns about Jordan Tyson with his measurements, and I think Mekhi Lemon is the perfect fit for Kansas City to regain their explosive edge on offense.
See, I completely disagree with you on Kansas City.
Oh, really?
I don't see how they go offense in the first round. You are picking number 9 overall. When are you going to ever pick number 9 overall again?
That's what's interesting, and that's why I know, you're rarely going to get a chance like this if you're the Chiefs.
My point is this, though, Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver for them. Is it a need? Maybe.
Yes.
No, it's not. They have
Xavier Worthy and
they have Xavier Worthy. It might be a need. It's not a guaranteed need. You know what is a guaranteed need? Pass rusher.
That is true.
So
I just am worried about either health or suspensions with some of those Kansas City wide receivers.
But guess what Andy Reid is? Andy Reid's an offensive guy. They can draft receivers. They can figure it out. They have Mahomes. They don't need to spend. If they didn't have any receivers, you could make that argument. They have enough guys. They don't have a defensive lineman next to Chris Jones.
Yeah.
At all. And that's what hurt them.
Yeah. If I can
My other question with the Chiefs, though, would be this. A lot of people are connecting the tight end out of Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq, to the Baltimore Ravens.
There's no way they're taking a tight end. Exactly to my point. They are going defense. I will be shocked. The only way that they go offense is if they take a lineman. I will be shocked if they take a skill position player at 9. At 29, maybe. But at 9, to me, they're taking either a corner or, especially if David Bailey or Reuben Bain. If either one of those guys are there, they're taking one of those players.
Bain may drop. If I'm not mistaken, there was some stuff that came out.
Well, there's concern about his arm length, very similar to Will Campbell, which did show up.
I do believe there was an arrest, though, recently, and I can't remember all the details, but it was. But I wanted to go back to a point that Josh was making, because I can't speak for all Browns fans, can't speak for Josh necessarily. I feel similarly with Cleveland. I think it has to do with the Deshaun Watson fatigue, and it's come back.
Oh, I just call him number 4. I don't even like to say his name.
Preferably, yeah. But there's also just been, I forget how old you are, Josh. I think we're close in age, and outside of, and I don't include the very first Pittsburgh playoff game where Cleveland lost in the early 2000s, because that's something I cannot personally remember from my own brain, right? I've only seen 3 winning seasons in my lifetime, and I only had one of them when I was a kid, and it's just been constant tear down. And when a good thing just seems to start happening, and there's other things that, I've been able to learn, or other things that have been reported that it just gets nauseating at one point or another for some. And it's just, when you've got a good baseball team and you've got a good basketball team that's up 2-0 in the first round of the playoffs, what you should be paying attention to them is how I view it personally. And why should I invest my time in a team that's just continued to fail and fail and fail again?
All right, guys, we got to move on. Let's talk about the great running back of this class, Jeremiah Watt from Notre Dame. We sort of spoke about this a little bit earlier, so I don't think we'll spend a ton of time here, especially because we got to run through some of these other questions. I think it's obvious. It's either going to be Tennessee or Washington. And every leak and every report out there is telling you it's going to be Tennessee. So that's where I'm inclined to believe he will eventually land, but I still think there's an outside chance it could be with the Commanders.
I do think there's a smaller chance that he does land with Cleveland, and I know this was something that Aaron Goldhammer was getting slammed about. I understood his logic, and while I don't think it's going to be that, let me just ask you this question, just yes or no, and then I'll follow up after that. If you were guaranteed Love to be basically a CMC type of back, you would take him, yes or no?
That's
both
because
of you.
I have Judkins already. If I
That's
didn't
what I'm
have,
worried about is that what was it, an ankle injury or like just an injury to his lower leg? I feel like we've had a couple of backs in recent years where they've looked good. I don't know. I just feel a little worried. I shouldn't, but I just have this little just like thing in my gut. I'm like, why do I feel so worried about it?
I'm not against having two running backs. What I am against is having two running backs when you have no offensive line and no other skill position players.
That's why I'm saying, though, if he's a CMC type, he could fill in more as a receiver type, while Judkins would be your main back. That's where I don't think it's going to happen, but that's where I think the logic at least makes some level of sense.
That's the other thing. To Josh's point, I love Dylan Sampson. I actually liked him more than Judkins coming out, and they did not use him proproperly, in my opinion.
I was honestly more like I was higher on Travion Henderson than Judkins, but I'm like, hey, they got one of the two. I
thought Dylan Sampson was one of the best backs in the draft last year, and I just think he wasn't used to his potential properly. Maybe that's my mistake. I like him a lot, and I think because you drafted two running backs last year, you're going to draft another one this high.
I think it just depends. Again, like I doubt it happens, but I at least could see the logic. So I think people should at least give those who are like, I want Jeremiah Love a little bit of slack. But again,
I'll give the logic if you trade back, not at 6 for this specific team.
Yeah,
well, for Tennessee,
it's a hard sell,
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Josh.
So again, I've heard reports in the last couple days that Arizona could be a landing spot for him. Whether that's smokescreen or not remains to be seen, because I've also heard they're trying to trade out of it at number 3. But with that report, if I'm Washington, maybe I try and trade up to number 3 to get in front of Tennessee so that I can get Jeremiah Love, get Jaden Daniels, another threat so teams can't just load the box against him. And again, like I said earlier, that means Dallas has to go against him twice a season. It means New York has to go against him twice a season. And I'm only using Dallas and New York in this particular case. I know Philly is also in the division, but I'm only mentioning Dallas and New York because New York is at number 5. Dallas could possibly move up. We just talked about that. So that's the only reason I'm not including Philly.
Yeah, if I'm a Commanders fan, if I move up, I actually would prefer it not to be for Jeremiah Love. If I'm moving up, I want Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles. Because
I think Arizona could take a guy like him and he can play a little bit of a hybrid role. I think Arizona is going to be really interesting as to where Caleb Downs will end up going. I think whatever position they pick is going to really dictate the rest of the board.
Which leads us to our next question, by the way, because as to who will be the biggest steal of the first round, I think it potentially could be Caleb Downs. Because I think there's a scenario where he slides. And by slide, I mean he could slide all the way to Dallas at 12, which was where he was initially drafted. I don't think he gets past that, but there is some talk that he could be the guy because some people don't know if he's going to be a Kyle Hamilton type that can play linebacker, safety, corner. I think
he's a dynamic player.
I think he'd be a perfect guy for like John Harbaugh, who obviously had Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. I think they're very similar players. So, but I mean, I think out of the 3 big Ohio State defenders, Downs, Reeves, and Styles, Downs is going to be the third guy taken, I would think.
Yeah, Downs. I think Downs maybe has the highest ceiling from my perspective, along with Reese. Styles is definitely going to be solid. It's just tough because if he slides, like, I don't think he gets past Dallas. He's such a really good talent that he can probably play a little bit of that hybrid high linebacker role too. You have a guy who's, pardon me, kind of like a jack of all trades, and that's something invaluable given that, especially, I don't know if you realize this, Brandon and Josh, we're reaching the point where rookie scale contracts prior to the 2011 CBA are now reaching the point from like 2010 and before where the first overall pick is getting about 55, 60 plus million guaranteed prior to fifth-year options.
So I think the biggest steal of the draft, especially if he goes to the Rams 13th overall, because we know what type of offensive genius Sean McVay is, and they have Matthew Stafford there, who's coming off of an MVP season, and the Rams made it all the way to the NFC Championship and gave the Seahawks their toughest test en route to winning Super Bowl 60. I know they have Puka and they have other offensive weapons, but if they go with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, Sean McVay would come up with some genius ways to use him. I think it would give Stafford another weapon, and that would just make that Rams offense that much more dynamic. It would put them again right in the discussion for winning the Super Bowl, coming out of the NFC. If the Rams go with Sadiq, look out.
I don't know. I think they already have a pretty good tight end room between Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee are your top two options. You got Terrence Ferguson. I don't think they necessarily need a tight end. Now, can they get could it be a luxury? Sure, but I don't think that's their biggest need right now.
Hey, Fitz, can I counter with that's the same logic I use for Kansas City?
Fair game.
I mean, Tyson makes more sense with Kansas City, though, because we've seen a lot of teams have success with multiple wide receivers, not just 1A, 1B, but if you have a solid number 2 wide receiver, it makes a difference.
My argument is the Chiefs already have 2 solid wide receivers.
Going back to Rams real quick, everyone thinks that Devontae Adams could be on the move, and I think that's just utterly stupid.
I don't think he's on the move. I think he'd be a nice compliment for this year, but I think this will be his last year. Yeah. I think what the Rams are thinking is we have one more year with Stafford, maybe McVay, by the way, because
he was almost going to walk away a few years ago.
McVay and Stafford tied together, and Devontae Adams, and maybe Puka Nacua. I think they are going all in, and if they win the Super Bowl, they may decide to blow everything up.
By the way, did you see the Rams updated their logo?
I did.
Let me see. Hold
on. It is awful. It's the same logo they've been using. It's just all yellow.
Well, while you do that, let's look at my Eagles real quick. I mentioned earlier, and there's a world out there where they take a receiver in the first round. I would personally not. Will I be okay if they do? I've already accepted the fact that A.J. Brown's going to be a Patriot on about June 2nd, 2026. Josh, go ahead.
I don't think they should go wide receiver in the first round because, like you said earlier, if they do, they lose all leverage. Well, any that they have left, really. But because here's the thing with the whole A.J. Brown thing, everybody's already penciling him in to go to the Patriots. We talked about the Buffalo Bills earlier. What if they try to come in and I know they traded for DJ Moore already. I know they have Shakir. But that's
what I just said. Is for Buffalo to go after Cooper out of Indiana. Now, what I'm saying here, though, is there's no way Philadelphia trades back. They have 8 picks. I think, if anything, the Eagles may try to move up. If there's a player they like, they may try to move up.
I was saying that maybe the Bills try to trade for AJ just so he doesn't go to New England.
I doubt it. I think it's sort of a handshake agreement that he's either going to be a Patriot or he's going to be an Eagle.
But nonetheless, I agree. I don't think they'll go with wide receiver because, as I said, you lose all leverage that you have, which I don't think they have a lot anyway. But, it worked out for them with Jahad Campbell last year. Howie rarely misses when it comes to defensive selections. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go with defense. But I could also see them, like you said earlier, getting a Lane Johnson replacement.
A lot of different scenarios out there. Fitz.
Sorry, I was just looking it up because I was wondering if there was like an anniversary coming up with why LA maybe went to that gold logo. I don't think there's a round number anniversary, but I still find it hard to think that they're going to go for AJ Brown. Again, we'll find out. I think, obviously if the Eagles take a wideout, then it's pretty much almost a given. But I still think there's a world where it doesn't happen. I mean,
I think there is a small world. Obviously, there's been a lot of buzz in the news lately about the Patriots coach and a certain reporter out there.
Yeah, and man, that's
and
a dicey situation
it seems like that's where most of the majority of this news is coming from. And then randomly on Monday, Adam Schefter comes out with 3 straight tweets basically saying the Eagles are trading AJ Brown to the Patriots on June 2nd. Which that's always been the date because you can post June 1st designated and it would be less cap room, but it's a wait and see. I do want to wrap it up with a couple of things. So let's first talk Ty Simpson. I don't think he should be a first round pick. I do think there is a high possibility, though I'm not going to say it's 100% for sure, some team is going to trade up at the end of the first round. And I don't mean it's going to be a smart team. I mean, the Jets could do it at 16 because that would be a Jets thing to do. The Dolphins, I think, are an interesting team to watch because they have
the one that I'm
4
watching.
third-round
Is at
picks.
30, number 30. They could definitely do it.
Well, even then, if they want to move up even more, because again, they have those 4 third-round picks. I doubt they're going to use all of them. I really don't know. I think this kid. I'll be honest. I've said it all along. I think he made a mistake. I think he should have went back to school. A lot like
Dante Moore from Oregon.
Dante
Moore announced he was going back first. No.
Yes,
Ty
he did.
Simpson, yeah. I was just trying to remember the order.
Wasn't it the same day or close to it? I think it was around.
I think it was.
I think what was it? Because it was like I think Simpson. I forget how it went, but basically I was just
I'm saying, and then I think Ty Simpson's agent told him that's good news for you. Go to the draft.
Yeah. I don't think he's a first round pick, more especially for just talking true first round picks, right? I think it's a little less than 50-50 that he'll go in the first round. If there's a lot of teams that think that next year's quarterback class is going to be generational, let's just say, just for argument's sake, I don't know if you see a team trade up to take him for that first year option if you think, I can still get him for 4 years, and worst case scenario, I have to apply a tag if he works out. But,
I can see Arizona doing it.
That's a team I think could do it, but I don't. Again, they could sit what? They're at 35th overall or 34th in overall, second or third pick of day 2 as of right now. So it could really go any number of ways, but I don't see a team that's going to shock us like Jacksonville did with Blake Bortles all those years ago and select him much higher than we're expecting.
For the record, I was a fan of Blake Bortles. He got into an AFC Championship game. I mean, you got to give him that.
I wanted them to win that one, man.
So speaking of which, guys, I have been on the record, and I'm going to be wrong on this. I already am because of what we saw with the Bengals and Giants on Saturday night. But my thinking was there's going to be so many players that are going to be graded so similar in this draft. I did not think we were going to get a lot of aggressive teams because I thought teams were just going to stay pat and take who they felt was best at that spot. Now I'm starting to think we may be in for a crazy first round.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a possibility Arizona could trade out at number 3. There's a lot of reports Dallas might try to move up from number 12, like we mentioned earlier. But other than that, like, I don't see a scenario where a team like the Jets try to trade up from number 16, or like the Bears possibly trading up from the late 20s, you know, because I don't think there's that one player that teams are going to be like, oh, we got to go get him.
No, like we've been talking about before, unless like a Caleb Down slides, maybe Reuben Bain, if his arm size, is an issue and he slides, I could see the receiver Tyson. If there's probably going to be concerns about his medical, but if a team falls in love with him, maybe that's the case. If there's a run on these receivers here.
Yeah. Tyson's the one that's going to be the most interesting of the wide receivers landing because he's got a smaller catch radius, and obviously his brother Jalen plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jalen's 6'6", but I don't know. Like, I just feel like Jordan, like, he's a good football player, but I feel like he's rated a little too highly.
I also
I'd
think
love it if the Browns drafted Jordan Tyson number 6 overall, because then we.
No, I hate it. If you're injured in college, you're injured in the NFL. By the way, for the record, he's a good player. He's off my draft board.
He's not anywhere near my draft board at all.
Not just because of the,
especially at 6. And by the way, Cardell Tate's the best receiver.
He is, and it's like I don't get what the argument against him is, other than he's had Jeremiah Smith or XX and X. It's like,
well,
here's the best thing I have is he's a Mike Evans type, not exactly for a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? But what I explained in the
I'll just add this: out of all the Ohio State receivers that have came out the last 4 or 5 years, the worst 2 might be Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave. If he is that, he is easily the Browns' best target.
He is. That's exactly why I think if they think he's the best player on the board, they should go ahead and take him. And I wonder, because there has been some fan perception, especially with all the stuff that's gone down. I wonder if this might be the time where, despite what might make sense in trading down, depending on what offers they get, if they end up sticking there and trying to address a need on draft night.
They should, but it's the Cleveland Browns. So I don't trust them to do the right thing, especially because Jimmy Haslam is our owner, and well, I will continue to say he is our version of Jerry Jones. The only difference between Jerry and Haslam is that Jerry gets in front of the camera, he gets on the microphone, and Jimmy Haslam doesn't do that. That's literally the only difference between the two of them.